Previously on Gearz.
How's it, Steve?
Hey, Sasha.
You well, young man?
I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm terrific. Listen, this is very, very exciting stuff. Steve and I had a chat a little bit last week, and he came up with this idea because he writes some really, really fun reviews about cars. And a lot of people read your stuff, Steve, but we thought, you know what, it'd be so cool to have it here on Balls and Gearz.
Yeah, well, it is actually cool to be talking about cars for once and not just writing about.
Yes, what a tough life you have, Steve, just driving cars all day. Great to have you on Gearz. I mean, listen, we've spoken a couple of times, during the Formula One season, and also about the Red Bull Bulletin magazine, but now something completely different.
Yeah, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the various cars I've been driving. But mostly I want to talk about the Japanese, actually, which kind of confirmed how really weird they actually are, I've discovered. So, I had the Toyota 86 for a week, which has been a car everyone's been talking about over here in the last few months. Known in Japan as the Hachiroku.
Oh, what a lovely, what an easy name.
Yes. It kind of gets its origins from quite a famous Toyota Corolla in the 80s called the 8086, which was quite big there. We never really had it here. But I don't know, I'm finding it really hard to believe this car was actually made in Japan or even designed there. Because, I mean, if you look at kind of the way the Japanese approach their life, it kind of reflects their sports cars. So the Japanese are weird. They're a pretty schizophrenic bunch. They either live in kind of paper and wood and glue houses, which look a bit like this, right?
Yes.
Or they live in, which is a kind of neon, eye-searing city of Tokyo, and that kind of pretty much reflects how they've made their sports cars in the past. They've either been really conservative and really tame. You know, you've had your Mazda 8, your Mazda Miatas, Toyota MR2s, not much power, or you've had the likes of the Nissan GTRs, and the Supras from Toyota, which basically bite your head off if you don't know what you're doing. So there was no kind of in between, which made me think like this Toyota 86 is so perfectly poised and so well balanced as a car. There's no ways the Japanese made it. I think it was made in England, if you ask me, by Lotus, because that's what it feels like.
You know what, I'm glad because when I first looked at it, I thought it was a Hyundai Tiburon mixed with a little bit of a Lotus Exige somewhere along the line.
Yeah, look, it feels exactly like an Exige, and or an Elise, which is the less powerful one. Except obviously it doesn't smell of warm glue, and bits of it don't fall off like the Lotus does. But it handles in exactly the same kind of way, you know. It's got this perfect kind of 50-50 weight distribution. It's a really lightweight chassis, and it's got a relatively small kind of 2-liter engine, which is the part that Subaru made. And that's the other big news about this car, is that it's a collab between Subaru and Toyota. Toyota kind of made everything except the engine, which is Subaru's contribution, a little 2-liter, 147 kilowatt flat 4 boxer engine, which is a real gem. And mated to this lightweight chassis, and exceptionally low center of gravity. They've really dropped the engine low, and it's in the front of the car, but it's really set back. I think that they talk about this engine being lower than the engine in the GTR Nissan. So
wow.
They've really done their homework with this. And the car it's brilliant to drive. I'm sure you, Sasha, you've been in cars where the fast cars really scare the crap out of you.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Fast, you really have your game to handle them. But this is not like that. I mean, this is fun, it's quick, it's going to smile on your face. It's sort of safe fun, you know?
You know, the thing about it, I haven't driven it as yet, and I must say it's great that Toyota have come out with something that I can look at and say, oh wow, they've actually come out with something that's quite good looking, that doesn't look like a brick. So I do find it quite appealing. But I've seen a few on the road, and I'm already getting, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I'm already getting bored with the shape.
Well, look, it's quite a timeless shape. I mean, it gets its inspiration from quite a famous Toyota, the Toyota 2000 GT, which was made in the 60s, which really put Toyota on the map or put Japan on the map as a maker of good-looking sports cars. Up until then, they were making kind of frumpy sedans and little cars that looked like dinky toys. So it's based on that Toyota, and it's a progression of that design. I don't know. I think it's quite timeless. I like the front. It's quite subtle. It doesn't have anything it's quite un-Japanese in that way as well, which generally the design's quite fussy. This is quite simple, sleek lines, which I quite like. But I mean, the best thing about it is its price. I mean,
Yes.
It's phenomenally cheap for what you get, you know. I think it starts at 298,000. I think the more expensive one is 346. So that's kind of the best bang for your buck sports car you're going to get at the moment.
Yeah, that's the one thing very appealing about it is its price. Steve, the one thing I wanted to ask you about this 86, because it seems to be ready for just all of. I mean, it's got the Subaru engine, but it seems to be like, oh well, I want more power, I can just bolt it on. It seems as though like it's a fun little car that you could just add little bits on, like playing Gran Turismo.
Yeah, you see, I think that's Subaru's plan. I think they've kind of given Toyota, said to them, okay, you guys can launch it first. But I think Subaru are going to arrive with a turbocharger or two bolted onto this 2-liter engine. And then we're going to see the kind of power that this chassis probably deserves, which is going to put it into a different class. I mean, you're going to probably have to up your driving skills a bit to handle this, because, firstly, the manual gearbox is a wonder. It's this little 6-speed gearbox that really hooks into the engine's power band. It fits just perfectly in your hand, and you really feel like you're actually physically hooking into the engine. So that in itself is a work of genius. But what the great thing about this car is that, and this is what every youngster who's probably going to want to buy this car is going to ask, is does it drift? And the cool thing about this is, yes, not only does it drift, but it's, as an experienced driver, you can probably drift it without having some medical help and a tow truck on standby when you get it wrong. It's really progressive. It's got little 17-inch tires on that are quite hard, but that's quite good. You really, it lets you know when it's gonna break free. Not like I don't know if you've driven that Nissan 370Z.
Yeah.
Which clings like a limber to the road, but once it lets go, boy, you got to be wide awake to catch it.
I very much so. I think the great thing about it is it does now sort of add an entry level sort of drifting car that looks the drifting part as well, whereas you can go and buy a BM rear wheel drive or whatever, but this thing, as you say, and I cannot wait to drive it, just looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it feels, and it's a lot smaller in the flesh when you see it. It's really low. I mean, it really is low, and you sit down in these really cool kind of shoulder hugging and hip hugging seats, these great sports seats that it's got. You sit low into the car, you kind of peer over the dashboard, the gear lever just fits perfectly into your hand. And the other thing I really love about this car, it's got the greatest steering wheel. There's no buttons on it. It's like an old school steering wheel. There's no like volume, switch this on and off, traction control rubbish. It's just a small little steering wheel that fits into your hand. It's brilliant.
You know what? That appeals to me a lot. I think getting back to the base, as you say, from the 200 GT in the 60s, which is a remarkable car. I mean, the amount of those that are getting restored nowadays all over the world is quite amazing. So they're definitely onto a winner here. Do you think with Toyota? I mean, in South Africa, I'm sure they'll sell bundles of them. But do you think we could see this car getting into a form of motor racing internationally, maybe in the world touring car? Something like that?
I think, look, I've seen a whole bunch of stuff on the internet of people are swooping them up, and they have that really wonderful sports car series in Japan, where they have all the kind of supercars with their flared wheel arches and great big spoilers. There's no doubt that you will see that appearing there.
Yeah.
It's also a really good entry-level racer, I think. It's the kind of car that teaches you genuine kind of car skills, It's like getting in a go-kart. If you want to learn how to handle a car, get into a go-kart and drive around a track and feel when you need to be in opposite lock, come on and off the brakes. It's exactly that kind of car. It's like a sports car wannabe racer's learner. You should have a big learner sign on the back of this car, actually.
Yeah, I think it's. What is the? Because you say it is pretty quick. What's the rev range like, Steve?
The rev range is pretty good. You do have to operate in the high levels of it. It doesn't
Yes.
have a lot of low down torque, which this kind of engine probably wouldn't. But as I said, that gearbox is so great that it allows you to hook into it quite easily. You've got to work the gearbox, but it's actually a pleasure to use it. It's one of those things where some gearboxes you think, I don't want to change a gear, I can't really find the gear, or it's just, this is one that you want to go up and down the gear ratio all the time. So that really wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah, I must say, it sounds like me. It reminds me of the Honda S2000. That kind of gearbox and that kind of rev range should be quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, look, I agree. I mean, it's not quite as sophisticated as that car, and also with that Honda, which is one of the greatest sports cars, I think, production sports cars made from a driver point of view. That also used to catch you out a little bit.
Yeah.
This is it's a notch or two down from that. As much fun, a little less scary. Which why I don't think this is a Japanese car. They've never made a car like this. I'm telling you, this is made by Lotus.
Well, I think what we've got to do, Steve, you and I, we've got to get one and put it up on jacks and take it apart, but not let anybody see what we're doing. Maybe we'll find some tricks about what they've done.
So yeah, it's kind of up against another Japanese car I drove quite recently, which is the interesting one, and that's the Lexus Gearz 450h, which is the hybrid, which is kind of the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to chat a little bit about that.
No, well, let's keep that for next week, because I mean, it's just they're so far apart from each other, yet they are actually very, very close to each other as well. So let's talk about the 450h next week, because I'd like to hear your opinion. I drove the one before that, the smaller one, but also with a hybrid. So
Yeah.
I'll be very interested to hear what you've got to say about it.
Yeah, great car. Also a sports car, and pretty surprising for me. It ticked a bunch of boxes I didn't anticipate.
Fantastic. Steve, it's great to have you on Gearz. Great to find out about the Toyota 86. I must say, what you've told me now, I'm actually very inspired to go and drive it now.
You should. I mean, it's one of those cars I think if I could actually own this one.
Awesome, my friend. You look after yourself, and we'll speak to you again next week.
Thanks. See you.
Thanks very much.
Good.
There we go. All right. So the line wasn't the greatest, but great to have Steve Smith on the show and his sort of take on cars that he drives and tests. That is the Toyota 86, and I must say, as he's mentioned there, I'm actually quite excited to go and give it a spin. So we'll do it every single Tuesday, around about quarter to 2, right here on Gearz.
Gearz on bulls.co.za with Sasha Martinengo.
He's kept himself out of trouble.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.